So today I wanted to come out here in the 20-degree winter weather to teach you guys how to buy an E34. I show enough E34 stuff on my page, I figured I might as well give you guys my rundown on how to go about buying these, what to look out for, and stuff like that. So I got two major different options here for E34. Got a V8 car, inline 6 car. That's pretty much the two main E34s that you can get. So to start with the basics, the model you're getting. There's 525s, 535s, 530s, 540s. If you're in Europe, there's 520s, but we're not going to get any of the European stuff because we don't have those here. But so anyway, a 525, 89 is a M20 car. Never had one. It's the only E34 I haven't owned besides an M5. You don't really want one of those. They're very slow. And then you have a 525 from 91 to 92, and that is an M50 Vanos, which we got there. And then there is a 525 from 93 to 95, which is a 525 Vanos, which is my Calypso. And then there is a 535, which is a 88 to 90 M30 car. That's a car I featured on my channel a couple months back. Then there is the 530, which is a V8, and then there's the 540, which is the bigger V8, basically the top dog of the E34, except for the M5. So those are the basics. There's wagons and sedans. We got two sedans here, wagon, sedan, same pretty much thing to kind of look out for. But anyway, let's get into this. So I get DMs nonstop from people asking me what to look out for when buying E34, this and that. So I wanted one video here to kind of get to everything, so I can just send these people links because I can't keep repeating myself. And just as a disclaimer, me buying one of these cars is a lot different than a lot of other people. I buy these cars with issues intentionally because I want to work on them and I want to make content for you guys. So someone might want to buy one of these and they might want nothing wrong with it, okay? It's going to be a lot different than me when I go out and buy it, where I don't even really look at things, you know? If the car runs and the body's how I want it, that's a big thing for me, and that's pretty much the only thing I care about. But I just want to say, the most important thing is, nothing can't be replaced. People kind of go about buying a car like, buying one of these cars as if like, if there's an issue, it's the end of the world. I mean, any leak can be fixed, any motor can be swapped, any trans can be swapped, any body panel can be repaired or replaced. Like, it's, you know, the body stuff is a lot more difficult than the interior or the mechanical side of things. So I kind of try to like make sure the body's where I want it, and then from there everything else is a lot less important. But I just want to say, I want you guys to know that anything can be fixed. You can still buy all the parts for one of these engines, suspension, brakes. I mean, if you buy it and it breaks, it's not like the car's done, you know, it's not like it's a total loss. So that's just a big thing I want people to know. But then on top of that is the body. So the main thing with an E34 that you want to learn or go about looking at is if the paint is how you want it and if there's no rust. So the paint, that's a personal preference. You know, you might buy a car that has a lot of paint imperfections and you don't care. That's you. Some people might want it to be mint. You're going to have to go look at the car and decide for yourself if there's too many dents, too many swirls, too many scratches, whatever, you know. So that's all preference. But rust is the big thing, and that's what you don't want. So I'm going to take you guys around and show you kind of how an E34 will rust. We got a rust-free E34, and then we got the end of its life rusty E34. So that's kind of why I would make this video with these two cars, because we have a parts car here that I can show you just how bad one can get, and then I can show you one that looks pretty decent. So a bad E34 will rust down at the bottom of the fenders and under the rockers. You can see this car is very bad. The rockers are pretty much gone. The bottom of the, like right there, the jack points are gone. Frame rails on this car are actually getting pretty rusty, which usually it's a lot for an E34 to get rusty. And then you look at the bottom of the doors. The bottom of the doors are the main thing. You can see here all the rust that kind of bubbles up. So this door is really far gone. You can see the bubbles that are now coming up the door, and the paint's just kind of gone. And you can see here a door with no rust. But do not let this fool you. A door with no rust on the outside, that's the obvious thing. But what some people might overlook when they buy one is you might have a door that looks clean from the outside, but get inside and that's where you'll actually see the rust. This is where it'll kind of start. So this 540 is a rust-free car, but if you guys have been following me, I swapped the doors, and the doors are a little bit rustier. But so anyway, from the outside they appear good, but this one you could see starting to kind of rust on the inside. That is a big thing with these cars, and I have a lot of videos talking about how to slow that rust down on one of these cars. But so that's an issue with all the doors. That's the main thing that kind of rusts on E34s. This is a rarity, but I guess it happens. The quarter panel, you know, this is with any kind of BMW, around the arch, a lot of, like with the rear bumper right here, a lot of dirt can kind of pool up here, so you can see bubbles. I mean, this is really bad. I think this has probably been like body work. Yeah, that looks like Bondo. I would say this has been Bondo before. That's why that's rusting really badly, because it's had body work done. So you want to check around the arches where we meet the bumpers. If you come around the back of an E34, usually, unlike E36s, this rear clip doesn't really rust. Like you can see, this car is pretty solid. But what will rust are the plate frame holes, and then kind of under this lip here. I've seen these get kind of rusty just because, again, moisture gets trapped up in the license plate lights. So you want to look at that there. And then inside the gas door is a big one. So this one's got snow, so you won't be able to see it very well, but this one's actually pretty clean. There's not much rust in there, but there will rust in there, so you want to check that out. Hood has a little bit of rust. That's kind of rare that the hood will kind of bubble up, but if you have rock chips in the front, then moisture and debris will get in there and rust those. Pretty much it for like a body rust on this car. That's kind of where they'll rust out. I've seen quarters get just completely destroyed, but not too bad. And then other than that, you do want, depending on where you live, you're gonna want to check your gas tank straps. You can see on this car, they're looking really rusty, so this gas tank's probably like on the verge of falling out. That's a good thing to check. I rarely do actually check that. You can buy those new, but they're pretty expensive. So that's pretty much the main thing with rust that you want to look out for on these cars. That's kind of the main body thing. So when you move on from body and you start to check out the interior, you're going to want to look at all the door cards. The door cards miss clips all the time. They kind of fall apart. No big deal. That can all be replaced. Door seals will shrink and leave some gaps there. These are really expensive, so it's nice to find these decent, but most cars won't have these in good condition. You're just going to have to live with it. A lot of clusters are kind of starting to tweak out, so you'll get like display things that, you know, pixels are dead or this and that. You're gonna want to start the car, make sure it gets to operating temp, make sure all the gauges work, gas and stuff like that. E34 dashes do not crack, contrary to what a lot of people say. A lot of people say, oh, I got a crack for E34 dash. That's not true, they don't crack. I have seen 89s like get kind of beat up and just kind of start to, I show some cracks, I guess. Like you can even see right here, I got a mini crack, but they don't crack like E30 dashes and E24 dashes. The later models will have this airbag cover that will almost certainly be warped. You have to deal with it. This vent will usually be warped and clips broken. It is what it is. Stock radio will hardly ever work. You're gonna wanna make sure your blower motor works on all the speeds. A lot of times it'll only work on 4. That means either the blower motor is going bad or the resistor is going bad. You want to check all the windows, the window regulators on these cars. Like most BMWs, notorious for going bad. You'll have windows that just don't work. So you want to do all 4 of them. The rears usually get used so little that they just get seized. Sometimes really holding down the button will kind of wake them back up. You want to make sure your seat functions work. E34 seats get twisted really easily. If the seat's uneven or it's moving uneven, don't fret. There's a lot of fixes online for that. It's super easy, so don't let that deter you. Aside from like those few things, really an E34 interior is like any car interior. Just like the paint, it's pretty much how you feel about it. You know, if it's too beat up for you, the seats, you know, if the seats are too worn, E34 seats are pretty durable. Yeah, I mean, the steering wheels wear like all BMWs. It's just, yeah, it's just if the door cards are beat up, are you all right with that? You want to try to fix them. Door cards on these cars are a pain. They get really beat up and they're hard to fix and really expensive if they're black interior. Black interior is the most desirable interior color, except for maybe like rare colors, but a lot of them are parchment, like the parts car. So you just want to make sure all the functions work. You want to make sure the lights work. You want to make sure the heat works. AC, if you care about it. I never really care about AC. Interior lights, sunroof. Like I said about everything else, anything can be replaced if you need it to be, but you will be paying a lot for like random interior things, so that's just something to note there. But nothing really interesting that you have to look out for in the interiors. I don't think there's anything major. Passenger carpet, if it's wet, probably should check the sunroof drains, but there isn't like a notorious like issue with the interiors of these cars, you know. And on to the most important thing is the motors and the drivetrain. And there is no bad motor for an E34. They are all super reliable and you should not have many issues with them. But again, like any old car, you're gonna wanna start it, let it run, make sure it can get to operating temperature in the middle and hold that temperature. If not, and it's overheating, then you're gonna have to investigate from there and the seller's not being truthful with you. But you wanna make sure that this is what I do. I basically go there, start it, if it runs, I let it idle, make sure it doesn't overheat, and that's pretty much the only thing I care for. I listen for the noises. I can put in a clip of a healthy M60 and a healthy 525 or an M50, so you can maybe compare the sounds. There shouldn't be any weird chattering or clicking or knocking or anything like that. These all should run very smooth. M30s and M20s sound like sewing machines. They have really loud top ends. That's a normal thing, so don't let that deter you. But the main thing on these is just leaks. They all will have leaks. Leaks are easy to fix. If the car is good otherwise everywhere else, I wouldn't let a leak stop me from buying it. You're gonna wanna check oil pans will leak, rear main seals will leak, valve cover gaskets will leak, timing covers will leak, power steering will leak. It's just part of the game, you know. Finding one with all this stuff already done is just the best way to kind of avoid that. The low mileage cars will leak, the high mileage cars will leak. The cars with the good service records that have had all that stuff done, those are the cars that won't leak. So basically it's your tolerance to leaks, what you kind of care about leaking. Old BMWs will leak. They all will leak. There's nothing you can do about that. But they're all really good motors, no matter which one you pick. So there's not really a whole lot to look out for. On the M60s, you can't really know this, but you kind of want to look and see if you can find out if the recall was done. The Nicosil blocks have the weird cylinder lining issues, so the Alucils are the ones you want. Most have been recalled, and the ones that haven't been recalled, people say it's not really an issue because with today's 93 octane gas, you don't have to worry about, I think it was like sulfur content that kind of messed with the Nicosils. So I have had friends that have had issues with theirs, even in today's world, but realistically, it's not the end of the world if you just put 93 in it. But if it's had the recall done, even better. That's an M60 thing. 525s, there could be Vanos rattle on the Vanos cars, and that's pretty much it. There's really not anything on M50s, M30s, M20s that's like a known issue. They don't go through timing chain guides, nor do the M60s. That's the M62s. So there's really not a lot to really fail on these cars besides regular maintenance, vacuum lines, all that stuff. So if it runs, this is what I tell people, if it runs and it sounds good, it's probably fine. No matter if it has 50,000 miles or 300,000 miles. As long as it's been taken care of, oil changes, they are good motors. You always want to check your oil, of course. It's a good idea to check that, and if it's low, then the previous owner didn't really take care of the car or pay attention to it. So that's a good thing to check. Vacuum boots or intake boots, these crack a lot. That bottom ICV hose is always cracked. You want to make sure your booster hose is intact. You want to make sure your MAF is in order. Coolant hoses are good. Radiator, fan. This car's missing the fan. Pretty much that's pretty much all you gotta really look for. I mean, you look at the M60, you could look in if the beauty cover's off and you could see if it's leaking valve cover gaskets, vacuum PCV stuff, hoses. I mean, there's all this stuff to kind of look over, but at the end of the day, I mean, if it doesn't blatantly leak and the seller's truthful, it's not a whole lot to worry about. And so if the body checks out, the motor sounds good, and all that stuff visually looks good, then it is time for your test drive, and that is where you will really be able to learn a lot about the car. An E34 should be a very smooth, comfortable driving car. It shouldn't shake, it shouldn't shimmy, it should feel planted. Obviously the tires and the brakes have a big part of that. You want to make sure the brakes are decent, tires are decent. If the car has a shake at 55, it's usually the upper control arms. That is usually the main thing. If the rear end feels floaty, you have your dog bones, which are right there. They literally look like a dog bone. Those are a big thing, kind of rear end shake. Subframe bushings will make these cars feel kind of weird. But at the end of the day, rear suspension stuff, shocks, and front and rear shocks, if they're blown, you'll know. Car will be very floaty, but mainly it's the front upper control arms that'll give you issues with shaking. Otherwise, these cars can have pretty worn suspension components and they'll still drive relatively decent, and there's nothing vital to kind of check. You want to make sure they shift good, whether it's auto or manual. You want to make sure it goes into all the gears smoothly. They should shift nice and notchy. I'll show you a nice shift pattern. There's not really much to tell through video, but you want to make sure it goes into all the gears without grinding, reverse included. Make sure the brakes work. The brakes shouldn't be spongy. The pedal shouldn't go to the floor. E34s have pretty solid brakes, 540s especially. They should have some decent stopping power. I mean, otherwise, it's just with any car. If you've driven them, just make sure it kind of drives how you think it's going to drive, and you should be kind of good. So that's pretty much it for E34s. This was not the easiest to make just because it's not like E46 M3s where I could give you the big three, the Vano subframe and rod bearings. Like it's hard to kind of there's not like detrimental things with these cars that you really have to look out for. It's literally what you are kind of all right with. You gotta make sure the body's what you want. You gotta make sure the drivetrain sounds healthy, runs healthy, and and how it drives. Like I said, and this is why it's hard for me to make a video like this, because I'm different. I buy these knowing that they need work and wanting work, and I don't really care. And I understand that these are cheap cars. I mean, some people, and I understand it's different for everyone. People, they ask me questions like it's a life or death, and it's like $100,000 purchase. You're buying an E34 for 4 to like 10 grand. No, from like 1 to 10 grand. I mean, you got to understand it's a really old car. It's going to have a lot of weird kind of things with it, but they're solid. There's not a whole lot to worry about. And everything, like I said, I think the main takeaway from this video is that everything can be replaced, and it's not that expensive, and it's easy to learn. If you're buying one, go through my channel, and you could probably learn how to do nearly everything you have to do on an E34 maintenance-wise. And I got a lot more videos coming as I buy another E34 in the future here. All of it's doable. It's pretty easy. They're really good cars to learn on. So don't be deterred if it has minor issues like oil leaks or this and that. Basically, the main thing is you don't want to buy a car with rod knock or oil pressure issues. I don't know. I mean, that's even that. I mean, I guess the prices are a little different now, but I mean, you could get an M60, M50 for like $1,000 and under. So you buy a car, you blow up the engine. It's really not all that. Replacing the motors is not that bad on these cars. Obviously, people don't want to do that, but it's not like buying a Ferrari where you're going to have like $30,000 in like maintenance. Cooling system, oil, and some gaskets and seals, and I mean, you got a really solid car. So don't overthink buying one of these cars. They're really great cars. There's not all that much that can go horribly wrong with them. It's just at the age they're at, they rust, the bodies get beat up, the interior things don't work, and yeah. But I hope this video helped some people. I hope it taught some things. If you want me to make this video for other model BMWs, which I probably will, let me know. E36, E46. I think I should make this in a series of all the BMWs I have and own and buy. But I want to get on the E34s because I am the E34 king on YouTube. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.